All right, so I wanted to take some time today to talk a little bit about meal structure on a plant-based diet, right? In talking about this, we have the meal structure on a plant-based diet for fat loss, and then we have meal structure on a plant-based diet for mass gain, right? Now, I've done both. I've dropped down to 155 pounds, 6% body fat. And currently, right now, I'm like 172 pounds, 10% body fat. Pretty big swing, right? It's like 15, 17 pounds. So I've done both. Now, my approach to one and my approach to the other, the key difference, yes, is calorie intake, but it's where those calories come from. Now, for the most part, when I wanted to cut body fat, I did it with intermittent fasting and a high-carb diet. Intermittent fasting, I had an eating window of 6 to 8 hours, usually 6 hours. And any other time out of that 6 or 8 hour window, I was just drinking my tea, drinking my water, and doing all of my training in a fasted state. And that was a game changer for me because I realized, wow, I'm training in a fasted state and I'm breaking plateaus and getting stronger and throwing more weight on the bar and flinging around heavier dumbbells, having a great time, right? And I did that even in a calorie deficit. Now, my calorie deficits were never really very steep. My calorie deficits, I always kept them around 10% or so. And the reason why I didn't really engage in really steep calorie deficits is because I didn't want to sacrifice nutrition in the pursuit of fat loss. So my cut took a little bit longer, but even though it took a little bit longer, I ate in a way where it preserved muscle mass. So, in dropping the body fat, I kept my carbohydrate intake around at least 60% of my macros. It would be 60 to 65%, somewhere around there. Now, in particular, my fat intake would be in between 15 and 10%. Not really any higher than 15, so I would probably average around 12% of my macros coming from fat. So I probably had a serving of nut butter or a serving of nuts per day. Just one, if I was cutting. And then all of my other food was fruits, grapefruit, grapes, bananas, right? Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, whatever kind of berries, right? Mango, watermelon, all that kind of stuff. Apples, cucumber, right? You know what I mean. And then I would have a bowl of oatmeal a day or a bowl of buckwheat porridge or something. I think when I was cutting though back in the day, it was a bowl of oatmeal with a serving of chia seeds in it. And then for my second meal, it would be more or less a raw meal where it was just greens. Right? So like a big bowl of like chopped up cucumbers and spinach and stuff like that, just greens. And then my last meal was lentils and tofu or chickpeas and tofu, right? Heavy on the protein. And then I would do a protein shake. And that would pretty much be my eating for the day. Now, a lot of times what I would do is I would combine my salad or just my greens with my last meal. So I would really just eat twice a day. So within that 6 hour window, just 2 meals. And this is why I was able to keep a 6 hour window in the first place. Sometimes it would even be a 4 hour window and I wouldn't even be trying. And that's how I cut, more or less. Mass gain is a little bit different, right? When I wanted to gain mass, I would still eat all those things. I would still eat that way. I wouldn't really change much else. But the thing that I would change was what I added. And I would add a sweet potato, where that one sweet potato would be 1.5 pounds. Get a nice big sweet potato and just eat that, right? Now, if my calorie deficit for cutting was, let's say, 500 calorie deficit, right, at the most. Usually for me, it was probably around a 300 calorie, 250 calorie deficit, somewhere around there, right? I wasn't big on the calorie deficits. Now, that 1.5 pounds sweet potato, it would be the one thing that I would add. And that sweet potato, that 1.5 pounds sweet potato would be, what, like 320, 350 calories, something like that. Nice big sweet potato. And that would put me in a calorie surplus. I would be in a calorie surplus of around 150, 200 calories, something around there, right, if I wanted to maintain. So it would be the sweet potato, and I would add like a 1/2 cup of rice. That would be the only two things I would add, right? So basically, I would end up having 3 meals. It would be the fruit with the bowl of oatmeal or the buckwheat porridge with the chia seeds, and the second meal would be the sweet potato with the greens. And then the third meal, it would be, you know, the lentils and the tofu with just a 1/2 cup or a 1/4 cup of rice added. And that was it. I would just add some more carbs, right? I wouldn't add more fat to my diet, just add more carbs. And that way, you still keep the high carb diet. You got this explosive surplus of glucose, nice full muscle from having all of these extra carbs. And of course, with those carbs comes extra protein, right? Because even that sweet potato would be, what was it, like 7 grams of protein for that whole sweet potato? And then the 1/4 cup of rice was like, what, 4 grams of protein? And then the 1/2 cup of rice is like 8 grams, right? So let's say 7 plus 8, and that's an additional, what, 15 grams of protein? It's a lot, right? So you add the calories and then you add the protein. And you keep your carbs nice and high. And those carbs are real easy to burn off when you're training heavy in the gym. And in order to build muscle, the most important factors, the most important macronutrients that you need for building muscle is protein and carbohydrates. So that was my strategy, more or less. Real simple. It doesn't really get much simpler than that. Now, when I would eat, my food choices wouldn't change too much. So the sweet potato, it was still a sweet potato every day, but I may have cooked it differently. Sometimes it was baked, sometimes it was boiled, and I seasoned it differently. Sometimes it was mashed, whatever. And then when I cooked my tofu and chickpeas or my tofu and lentils with my rice, I just used different seasonings. Sometimes it was cumin with curry and tomato sauce and a little bit of sugar cane and cayenne pepper and things like that. And then sometimes maybe it was something a little bit different. Maybe I did like a miso seasoning or something like that, right? Or an Asian style seasoning. Maybe like a General Toast or something like that. It's a funny name, right? General Toast. And I'm probably saying it wrong, I don't know. Or like a soy sauce type of deal or something like that. Or maybe I would take the chickpeas and put that in with the greens and the sweet potato. However you want to cook it, right? Different sauces, different seasonings, combining different foods. Maybe the fruits that you eat vary. You change up the fruits a little bit. You know, maybe instead of eating apples, you eat kiwis or something like that. Instead of eating oranges, you eat grapefruit. Whatever you want to do, spice it up. But more or less, it's the same frameworks of foods that you eat every day. And if you want to have the most success with your diet, it's very important to have as much consistency as possible in your meals. You don't want to be changing up your meal plans drastically from day to day.